Hey everybody, it's Master Galengeist here, bringing you my review of My Hero Academia Season 3 on Toonami. So, I really liked where they went with this season. They had a lot going on in the arcs that they moved through, and I really like the setup that they are able to provide for going into Season 4. So, the first arc kind of dealt with them going on a training mission, and at first you're thinking, oh, okay, this is going to be kind of your typical kind of stuff, but we are also now following kind of two parallel paths at this moment. The hero course, Midoriya and his cohort, as well as Shigaraki and his League of Villains doing their own kind of thing. So I like how that kind of goes throughout. Granted, we usually spend most of our time on our heroes throughout this season, but we do get spotlights enough on the villains to show that there's all these different moving parts going on. So they kind of go out and they're led on this training mission by their teachers, and they have to get through this forest, and they're like, all right, fine, we have to get there so that way we can, like, eat and everything. So that was kind of fun at first, but they're getting kind of set up and getting ready to do another kind of exercise over the next couple days. But the thing is, the exercise is interrupted when the League of Villains shows up to attack, and we don't know their true motives, but we also get all different kinds of other new characters in the League of Villains, so that way we see all different kinds of power sets going on, and quirks. And throughout all of this, we see that Midoriya is having to deal with this kid, Kota, who really doesn't believe in heroes because his parents were pro-heroes and they were murdered and they left him alone, and he doesn't really like heroes because of that. It's actually a pretty valid kind of reason. Midoriya, of course, is affected by this, and I'm like, wow, that really sucks that he thinks that way and tries to kind of bring him out of his shell because he really doesn't like anybody. I mean, he punched Midoriya in the crotch in one of their initial meetings, so the kid don't give a fuck at certain points. But once this starts going on and Kota is separated from everybody, Midoriya is able to figure out where he's at, and this leads to him fighting this one quirk user, Muscular, and having to really go all out to the point of severely damaging his body again to make sure that Kota is safe. And it was a really cool fight and really well executed to show how Midoriya is kind of learning from All Might, but still he needs to get a better handle on his quirk because his arms are severely fucked up. Even more so than what he was doing at the sports festival. I mean, that was some messed up stuff he did there, but this is like his whole arm as he unleashed this amazing smash attack to knock him out. And, of course, by this and continuing to further rescue Kota, this changes Kota's mindset because he's showing that this is what heroes do, and it was probably like what his parents were doing, and it just so happens that Muscular was the person that murdered his parents. Gotta get that connected and twisted around in the plot. Now, I don't think that there's a problem with that. That works very well, so that way Kota understands the gravity of the situation, but also just very well done. It's not like, haha, I killed your parents. It's just, and it's not that kind of blatant. We see that he had was missing an eye because his parents had taken out one of his eyes, and that pissed him off. But he got like a new one from the League of Villains, and that's even important to show that the League of Villains have certain other capabilities of even repairing or giving replacement organs. Like, okay, it is not good. So everybody's kind of like screwed up. There's this one villain that's using a quirk for a poison mist that people happen to deal with, and this one dude using fire. This one dude being able to do clones and everything. It's like, what the hell? This is a pretty well executed plan. And, of course, Midoriya took him out and figured out that Bakugo was one of the targets. So he's able to drop Kota off with Aizawa, and he's able to get to one of the other pro heroes within the place to use her telepathy to do the case that they have to protect that Bakugo is one of the targets and that everyone can use their quirks to defend themselves. However, they have to deal with certain things like Tokiyami's Dark Shadow has gone completely crazy because part of his thing is it's at night and it's hard to control his shadow ability at night. It's like rampaging, so they decide to kind of team up a little bit with the rest of the group that Midoriya has been able to gather, and they are able to get to Bakugo. But despite their best efforts, he is captured by the League of Villains and spirited off away, and this really affects them. Midoriya wakes up and finds out that if he keeps using his arms like this, he won't be able to use his arms anymore. So he has to kind of figure out what to do. Of course, his classmates are kind of fucked up as well, not to the extent that he is, and some of them are trying to figure out how to go and save Bakugo, because they were able to kind of figure out some intelligence and all that. Most of them are like, don't do this. But there's a select group that decide to try and go and rescue Bakugo, even though they come up with ground rules of like not to get into combat scenarios. Ida comes and follows along with them to make sure that if it gets bad, that they escape. While this is going on, we see that All Might and the rest of the heroes are taking this completely seriously and have unleashed their own kind of raid style to try and get Bakugo back. They are able to find the League of Villains one bar, and the thing is, wow, like, right before they were able to get in, they were trying to turn Bakugo into a villain. He's like, screw that noise, and pretty much ready to fight him single-handedly by himself, even though he knows he's at a tactical disadvantage. But that's, of course, when All Might and the rest of them pop up. It doesn't go exactly as planned, because this is when All For One starts using his own kind of thing. He tries to get Shigaraki back out, and of course transports Bakugo as well. This really pisses off All Might, and goes to the building that actually Midoriya and the rest of his cadre were trying to look at for Bakugo. However, it wasn't the real one that they should have been going for. However, there's like Nomu there, some pro heroes show up, and I'm pretty much getting everything cleaned up, but that's when All For One and the rest pop up and start making a mess of everything, taking out all of the pro heroes there, and we start to see the terrifying nature of All For One and truly understanding everything that we've learned about him to this point. He has all of these different quirks that he can utilize at once, and also can give and take quirks. He actually takes a quirk from one of the people that we had seen at the training exercises. And it's like, oh shit, how is that going to kind of affect her? Granted, they don't explore that much during this season, really at all, so we might see that later on, what the repercussions of that ability is, because I'd like to see that more, what happens to a hero that has lost their quirk, because the only ones we've really seen up until this point that would have that kind of issue would be Midoriya and All Might and the successors for One For All. But All For One is like fucking everybody's day up, but that's of course when All Might's able to pop in and starts a furious battle with All For One. Sweet Jesus. And it's like crazy. The animation that they were able to do in this fight was just nice, like really top tier. I really enjoy watching the visuals with this series, because usually, even in the kind of low kind of moments of kind of slice of life stuff, when they're doing stuff at school or just weird shit going on, it's still nice. But I mean, when you're a superhero show and you got awesome ass fights, you make them look good. And this was just like one of those epic ones of like the Avengers versus Thanos, pretty much. You see it in Endgame. It's like, yeah, this is what we were waiting for. But the thing is, All Might is still in a weakened state, and All For One is dropping bombs and everything. And the biggest one was that we find out that Shigaraki is the grandson of All Might's mentor, and that he turned him to fuck with him pretty much and make him his protege. But I really like that we've got more of this duality going on. We see All Might has chosen his successor, and we see that All For One has chosen his successor, and how these teachers are going to go about their respective charges in different ways. I don't think for one second that All For One is going to just let this go. He's probably grooming Shigaraki to be a nice kind of power base, and then potentially have him into a point that he could probably steal his body because of everything that's gone on with it. So we'll have to see how that kind of pans out. But even though All For One is able to utilize all these different quirks, All Might is able to deliver the United States of Smash, this giant last burst of energy attack that pretty much zaps him on most, I don't know about, we're never given a kind of accurate detailing of it, but pretty much almost the majority of his power. I don't know if he can change back into his muscular form at all, because the rest of it he's usually just in his regular gaunt form. But he is able to knock out All For One, and all the cameras around are able to see him in his weakened state, but he's still able to kind of give it off that. And it is now up to like Midoriya and making it kind of be like a threat to the villains, because at this point Midoriya and the rest of the group were able to get Bakugo out of the field so that All Might could go all ham on All For One. But now this has taken away the symbol of peace for the Hero Society, and now they have to come up with other kind of ways. We see like officials trying to figure out what to do, and of course UA trying to figure out how they should be going forward, and instead of trying to rely on just one hero, trying to push forward all of these heroes like as kind of the symbols of peace, which makes tactical sense, but also takes more time to get up to that point. And that kind of dovetails into all the rest of the stuff that's going on, because we see that now Endeavor is now the #1 hero, but that doesn't work out as well because he is more of a hot-headed personality, also because of his quirk, but also because of how much of an asshole he is. Because of these events, we then switch and we see that we get a new kind of tournament arc, but it's an organically done tournament arc. It's like, oh, okay, I don't mind that we had kind of the sports tournament, which, of course, was well done in itself. We then move into this part where we're like, all right, in order to work this out and to show that we're working our new heroes pretty well, they are doing a provisional hero licensing exam. And, of course, we get Midoriya going in with his group, but we see all these other heroes from different hero schools, which is a nice expansion of lore, an expansion of characters that doesn't feel like it's just overburdening it. We do get to see other kids from the school, and we are introduced to them, not extremely in depth, but enough to be like, hey, you're a character, you're not just a cardboard fucking thing just standing there, and having pretty sweet powers and everything. So the basis of the first round of this was that they were essentially doing a laser tag dodgeball would be the best kind of explanation, where you had to put kind of 3 sensors on yourself, and if you got hit 3 times, you're out. But yet, the thing is, if you take out 2 people, you pass on to the next portion. Best part of this was seeing how everybody kind of had to deal with all these different chaotic situations, and seeing most of Midoriya and his class kind of get through to the next round was nice, because it didn't feel like there felt like a good amount of tension in there, not knowing who would move on or where it would be done, even though we've been following these people as our main heroes throughout the whole thing. So they get through, and then we get to the next portion where it's a disaster area, and you have to rescue all of these different people that are in trouble. And of course, you start off with 100 points, and you get docked for certain things, so if you keep around the 50 mark, you pass. So we see Midoriya and his people doing all these different things, as out of the next portion of the test, that one of the heroes, Orca, pops up with his own kind of group to act as the villain. And this becomes important because we see that Bakugo is acting like an asshole during this, and then Todoroki is having a beef with a dude from another school that severely that make them fail. Midoriya and most of his class, except for Todoroki and Bakugo, pass on their hero exam. Of course, we also get that one asshole kid from B who, after the exam, is making fun of him that, like, the whole class didn't pass. But I'm like, Jesus, kid, that's all you got? So that was a nice kind of conclusion as we see that one of the kids from the school was actually one of the League of Villains, and that her objective was to get blood from Midoriya, and she was able to do this. I was like, ooh, we're gonna have to see how that kind of goes. That's certainly not going to be good. And while this is going on, we also got a kind of, it was really strange. I was like, okay, we got one that was done before the, actually like the training camp where Midoriya and the group was having to like deal with what they would do in this situation of like a robbery or whatnot. That was pretty kind of cool. It was just kind of one-off episode. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. That kind of would have been better at the end, but so we're seeing all the dealings of falling out of everything going on. Everybody's kind of like excited. We get that kind of down curve that they're good with their license exam. We see that All Might is visiting One for All in the prison of Tartarus. Love the name. And kind of getting a feel for everyone. Of course, All for One being like, I whipped your ass even though I'm in here. But All Might's being like, yeah, you're in here. And you've got a lot of faith in Shigaraki, but this is his big test. And we'll have to see if he's able to pass through. Because he's trying to gather more people into the League of Villains and kind of achieve his goals. Then towards the end, we see that Bakugo is pissed off because he didn't pass the provisional licensing exam. And he says, Midoriya, we got stuff to talk about. And he feels all these kinds of different things being inferior to him, even though he thinks he's superior to Midoriya, and blaming himself for All Might losing his powers and all that. And he pretty much wants to fight Midoriya and settle it, because he's pretty much like, alright, you're the one to inherit his powers and all that, and wondering why he wouldn't be worthy enough. It's like, it's Steve Rogers kind of scenario, where you see him and Erskine talking in Captain America the First Avenger, that a weak man understands the value of strength. And if Bakugo, who has, of course, these amazing powers with his explosions, could you imagine what would be going on, or what would have happened to him if he was chosen to be All Might's successor and then had One for All as well? We've already seen that he has inferiority issues and superiority issues and this arrogance and pride that would have been an even deadlier combination if he had gotten that. So it's like, ooh, what could have been? But we see that Midoriya is handling this situation very well. I mean, he doesn't want to be fighting in this training area because they're not supposed to be out at dark. Even Aizawa got the thing going on, but we see, of course, that All Might pretty much puts a stop to that at first because he needs to let this kind of go on. And they have a pretty great fight. We see how much that Bakugo has learned about Midoriya, but also Midoriya learning about Bakugo, and why they are such good rivals, and why that's going to push them and their stories forward. As we see Midoriya changing up his styles, as he has changed to using his legs more to save his arms, but in this case also using his arms at even like 8% power and shifting up and trying to minimize what's going on with Bakugo, knowing that he has to fight him to get this through, because Bakugo isn't usually a person to talk. He needs to let this happen to get this out. However, Bakugo is able to beat him, and he's like pissed off at that even more than if he had lost, because he's like, you're given all this power, and you still lost to me. What the fuck? That, of course, is when All Might comes in and kind of gets the whole kind of situation calmed down, having Bakugo being brought into the fold with the secrets, and, of course, showing why they are going to be good rivals, with Bakugo's desire to win and Midoriya's desire to save everyone, and that learning from each other to hopefully balance that out. Of course, they get punished for being out at hours and fighting, Aizawa giving the longer sentence to Bakugo. However, I understand Midoriya being punished for reasons, but the thing is, it really irked me. Mainly because Midoriya did not want to fight, and that his only option was to minimize this as much as possible and to shut down the fight in as best a way as possible. And I think he achieved those objectives and yet was still punished. I understand not trying to show favoritism or anything like that, but the thing is, Midoriya did not want to fight and did his best to make sure that it was stopped as well as possible. I don't know. That's my opinion on it. And that's not even like a real quibble that it happened. Like story-wise, like, oh, this completely breaks the story. It's mainly my view on Aizawa's decisions to do this. But, of course, they are under house arrest and have to wait out a determined period of time. And, of course, Ide is, like, fucking with them on that. Like, you should have been doing that. I'm like, the fuck? Bakugo started the shit. He was just making sure that he wasn't going to get his ass whooped like ain't nobody's business and tried to stop the situation. Oh, yeah. But they were bringing up the whole issue because this is setting up of hero work studies. And that first years were going to be allowed to do it. Usually been reserved for third years. And, of course, when Midoriya is brought back in, they bring up the big three of the senior class, the like top students at UA, pretty much posed to be the next kind of big pro heroes. And of course, they are nothing like you would expect. One is like a chatty airhead girl who I'm interested to see what her quirk is, and this one dude who's like, I don't really like public speaking, I want to see what his is. But we had seen the third guy, and he just has this air about him, and also looks suspiciously like All Might. I think that is on for there's a reason for that. And we had been introduced to him when Midoriya was taking out the trash, and we see his head like popping out of shit, and I'm like, what the fuck kind of quirk is that? That's kind of crazy. I think his name is Mirio, or it's how you say it, Mirio. Mirio, or like Mirio. We'll go with that. Mirio. Pronunciations. But he is like the most intriguing to me at this moment because he's kind of the leader at least a little bit, but I kind of want to see these guys in action. So he decides, all right, how about I just kind of show it to you what we've learned from the work studies and go along with that. And he decides to fight pretty much the whole class. And they get their asses whooped. The only one who kind of has the kind of tactical mind to kind of figure out what's going on is Midoriya, but he still gets beaten by him. And Mirio really goes and compliments him. He's like, hey, you actually figured out what was going on and tried to assess the situation. Because we figure out that his quirk, he's able to kind of like make himself intangible, but that means that he doesn't have any of his senses. So him going through this battle and getting that hard, like being that battle prowess, took a lot to do because they had seen him at the sports festival at one point, and he was like losing his clothes because he becomes kind of intangible and things can pass through him and he can go down underneath like the ground and all that. It's like, holy crap. And just how he was able to do that was really nice, just showing like hard work paying off and all that. And the thing is, he really liked getting introduced to Midoriya and saying that like, hey, Sir would be pretty interested in meeting this guy. And it's like, okay, now we're introduced to him as some hero is giving him a kind of status update. We're like, that's kind of strange. We'll have to see how we learn more about him and everything in the next season and what's going to be going on with that. So I really liked how this was structured up. The arcs moved very fluidly with each other, built on each other, and nicely transitioned. There wasn't like a kind of hard stop or some weird kind of filler thing. And even any filler that like popped up felt natural. So it's like, oh, okay, this is just a nice kind of palate cleanser before we go into the next thing. And I like how we're seeing all these different things going on because at the end we also see that the League of Villains has to deal with these increased villain presences and trying to kind of work together. So they're going to have their own growing pains because usually people like to be top dog and top dick. So we'll have to see how Shigaraki has to deal with this one person that the villain twice brought in, and what's going to be going on with them, and what their plans are going to be going forward. So I really enjoyed this season. I of course, can't wait to see when season 4 pops up, and would definitely recommend it. It's definitely continued the quality that I have seen in seasons 1 and 2, and can't wait to see where these different stories and everything pop up and see what is next on Midoriya and his friend's journey. So those are my opinions on the anime. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.